Hi Tigers, it's Miss Gunn again, and we are in week 2 of our engineering design process project. So last week I gave you a scenario about Peter Rabbit. Hopefully you listened to the story on Epic Books, or maybe you had the book at home already to read. And our problem is that Peter needs to get over a tall new fence that Farmer McGregor has built. And you guys came up with some really great questions and sent them to me. So the most common and frequently asked question was, how tall does the fence need to be? So I did a little bit of research on the wonderful world of Google, and I learned that rabbits can jump over a 2-foot fence, but that's about the maximum height that they can jump over. So at home, if you're building a fence that is more than 2 feet tall, then a regular rabbit should not be able to jump over it. So I'm going to sort of leave the height of the fence up to you, because I know that we all have different abilities and materials available in our homes. But I think if you try to make a fence that is at least 3 feet tall, then you'll be making something a little bit more accurate to our problem. Some ideas that you might use for a fence. I saw a couple of students found like Amazon boxes and stacked those up. Or maybe you have Legos that you could stack up. It might not be super wide depending on how many Legos you have, but maybe you could at least try to get the height part. Maybe you have a bookshelf and it could be taller than 3 feet that you could try to use. Maybe you have a toy box or a basket, or maybe some like Tupperware from the kitchen, and you could stack a couple of plastic containers to help you get that height. Maybe you have a chair that you could try to leap over. So those are some ideas for your fence. Try to make it at least 3 feet tall. That means 3 feet is the minimum, but you could go as high as you wanted. Our next step is the imagine step. So remember, we always start by asking questions. Next, we try to imagine some possible solutions. So one of the most important 21st century skills that we practice when we are in the imagine step is sketching. Now, when you sketch something, it does not have to be perfect. It does, however, need to communicate, which is another 21st century skill, what you are trying to create and represent it to the best of your ability. A great way to help you communicate the meaning of your sketching is to label the parts. That's why I always ask you guys to label it. So you're going to label, what materials are you using here? What is that part of the device? Is that a lever that's going to shoot it over? Or is it a bouncy surface that's going to help him bounce? Kind of help us understand not only what material are you using, but what is the purpose of that part. So for this step, and I'm going to get to your questions, don't worry. For this step for Imagine, I actually want you to design 4 different bouncing devices. You only have to make one of them, but it's really important as an engineer to think about different possible options. And if your first one doesn't work, maybe you have a backup plan. Maybe, I know some of you have already started building because you were just so excited. Maybe if you've already done that, you could draw that as your first design, and then if there are materials that you wish that you had to build with and you just don't have available right now, maybe your other designs could have that, and you could tell us why you think those materials would be better. So for our sketching, get any sheet of paper. We're only going to use one side, so if it's like recycled paper, that would work. But it doesn't need to be blank on one side so that we can do our sketching. So I have my piece of paper, and first I'm going to fold it in half, hamburger style. So that means I'm meeting the shorter ends of the paper together and crease, and this does not have to be a perfect fold. And then from here, I'm going to do it hamburger style again, so the short edges come together and the long edge is cut in half. And then when you open it up, you should have 4 sections on your paper. If you're on a device, you could also open a Google Slides if you wanted to. And there's also a program called Google Drawings. You could draw a sketch in Google Drawings, and you could put your designs, because when you finish in Google Drawing, it saves to your drive. So you could insert an image from your drive onto a Google Slides and have 4 different designs there as well. I'm just going to use paper, and up here in the first corner, I'm going to draw my first sketch. So I decided for my first try, I'm going to make sort of like a trampoline. So I'm gonna write, ooh, that pen doesn't work. Design 1. Okay. And then I'm going to be using a colander because it already has holes and rubber bands. And I'm going to cut the rubber bands so that it's one long piece of stretchy rubber. And I'm going to be tying them through the holes and stretching it across the bowl. And I'm going to put a bunch of them all the way around to make sort of a bouncy surface. So I'm going to draw 2 viewpoints. And so like here's my side, and I'm going to label that these are the holes to attach the rubber. And then I'm also going to do a bird's eye view. And always label. And then I might go back in later and add to my design some like tissue paper over it or some sort of fabric. I have tissue paper, so that's probably what I'll use to make it more of an even surface instead of just little bands that you have to try to jump on. So there's my first design. And then after I finish that, I would start brainstorming, and I'm not going to make you wait on me to do that. 3 more designs, 1 in each square or rectangle. So that's going to be our next step. I really want you to take some time to think about this and make it a clear drawing, because next week, as part of our plan step, I really want you to be able to practice collaborating, and we're going to be sharing our designs on Flipgrid using videos. So if it's not well thought out and it's just kind of scribbles on a paper, it's going to be hard for other people to see what you're trying to do. So really put some thought into that drawing this week. So I want to answer a few questions. Savannah, thank you for asking how high does Peter need to jump. Abhinav in 2nd grade also asked that question. So remember, at least 3 feet. And you can use whatever you have at home to build your fence. Jashank in 2nd grade asked how Peter got past Mr. McGregor to get to the gate. I don't know. I think he's kind of sneaky, but we're going to imagine that Peter is on the outside of the fence. Mr. McGregor is maybe in his farm somewhere inside, and Peter is trying to get inside. So I guess he's going to have to be really fast when he lands on the other side to make sure Mr. McGregor doesn't see him. From 3rd grade, Peter can be any size. Adia in 3rd grade, thank you for asking. I have a little rabbit. I got this at Kroger for this project, but you can use any stuffed animal that you have. This one's about the size of my hand, and so it'll kind of fit onto the device that I'm making, but you're just going to have to kind of do with what you have. Any stuffed animal you have, maybe a bigger Lego piece, maybe a bouncy ball. If you have that, you could use something like that. Anvita, how wide is the space between the poles of the fence? That's a great question. Let's imagine that where the posts are for the fence, it's about 6 feet, but there are going to be wooden slats in between, so there are no holes at all that Peter could crawl through. So it's going to be wood all the way, but usually there are some bigger round posts on fence to kind of help. So we'll imagine those are 6 feet apart. April asked how tall the fence is, but she also asked, is Peter jumping on grass or dirt? That's a great question. When I imagine this situation, I kind of picture it being a grassy area on the outside of the fence, and that's what the device will sit on. But I'm going to let you use your imagination on that. And if you picture a dirt area over there, go with that. Aishwarya had some really great questions online about the story when she read it, and we answered those online. In 4th grade, I got some really great questions as well. Shanmuga asked how tall the fence is. Can your design be small or big? If you have the space and you want to make a really big design and your parents say it's okay, you can go for it. And then he's going to be using a spring shoe, which I'm really excited to see what that ends up looking like. Elisa, I saw that you've been working on yours at home, and you had a great question. Are there any animals that could help him? And I think that's a really clever question, because we haven't really addressed that, but Peter does have a lot of siblings. So if you are wanting to find some other animals to help him, I would maybe plan on his other siblings, and maybe he's kind of leading them astray to be sneaky little rabbits. What is the weather like? Let's imagine it's a sunny spring day, because that's my favorite time of the year. Are there any plants or trees to help the rabbit after he bounces? So once he bounces, he needs to get over the fence and land just with the device that you're making. So he can't like grab onto a tree to help him or use something to kind of help push him along the way. And then for the weight of the rabbit, Elisa, again, that's just going to be based on what you have at home. I saw you have a rabbit that's a little bit bigger than mine. That's totally fine. The weight doesn't really matter. If you're noticing that your rabbit is too light, like this is a stuffed animal, so it might not bounce very well, then maybe find a heavier plastic toy to represent your rabbit. Soham, Peter is like a regular rabbit and can jump up over a 2 foot fence. The materials, Soham, are going to be up to you, whatever you have at home that you think you can help him jump at least 3 feet. And you asked a great question, how much time does he have to jump over? So remember, if Mr. McGregor is inside the garden, Peter does have to get over as quickly as possible in order for Mr. McGregor to not see him. So he wants to get over and then be able to hide maybe somewhere in the garden behind some plants. So as quickly as you can get him over would be awesome. Shriyadia had some great questions. And Shriyadia, I think you've already thought your questions through and answered most of them. It looks like you're wanting to make a catapult. And you might be putting a spoon and ruler together, which is a really cool idea. Darius in 5th grade has also gathered some materials, and you asked how much power does he need. So Darius, that's all going to depend on the size of your rabbit and the height that you build your fence. So if it's only 3 feet and it's a rabbit that has enough weight to launch easily, then you're not going to need as much power as like my small rabbit right here. And if it was like a 6 foot fence, I would need a lot of power to really loft it up. So it kind of just depends on the materials you have. And then Shreya also responded with how tall is the fence. So I hope I've answered all of your questions. You are always welcome to send me more questions in Google Classroom or through my email. It's gunnab@cfbisd.edu. I am so excited to hear from you guys. Bye.